Welcome and thank you for part 2 of this little series about our water. Is it good? Is it great? I'm going to read from an ancient text here in this Medicology encyclopedia. It's copyrighted 1904 by the University Medical Society of New York, Philadelphia, and London. We're in the paragraphs of purity of rainwater. The water which rises in vapor into the atmosphere from all the oceans, seas, lakes, and rivers of the globe is condensed after a longer or shorter time and falls to the earth again as rain. Rainwater, being in reality a distilled fluid, is the nearest approach to a pure water which we find in nature, and when caught in clean vessels placed upon elevated objects is almost free from contaminations. Now, impurities in rainwater. It contains, however, small quantities of organic matter, nitric acid and ammonia, all of which are washed out of the air through which it descends as rain. The source of the nitric acid is believed to be the nitrogens of the atmosphere, which combines with oxygen under the influence of the electric spark during thunderstorms. Nitric acid as rainwater exists in such insufficient amount as to be entirely unimportant in itself, but it adds very seriously to the danger of impregnation with lead from lead pipes, roofs, and cisterns by rapidly dissolving that metal and forming a very soluble and highly poisonous salt nitrate of lead. Wow. Sources of drinking water. Evaporation. Our supplies of drinking water are, of course, derived originally entirely from the rainfall. We need not consider now how the water found its way into the air without entering into the details of the process of evaporation. All that the present object requires is that we clearly recognize the fact that spring, fountain, river, and lake are all alike, fed from the clouds. Now, which float over our heads and send the rain upon the just and upon the unjust. Hence, the man is wholly dependent for this supply of this vital element upon the rain which comes down from heaven. How may dwell upon the most arid plains, but he drinks from the stream which flows beside or underneath his feet, which stream is itself fed by floods that fell perhaps 1,000 miles away. And whatever mystery attaches to the subterranean waters, we may be sure that by a long enough circuit we can trace every drop back to the clouds. Various fortunes of rain. The rain which falls upon the face of the earth meets with various fortunes. A part of it, the storm water, which furnishes most of our drinking fluid, washes from the surface of the ground, carries away from in its suspension many of its finely divided particles, dissolves what it finds easily suitable along its path, is gathered into open drainage channels, and forming part of some river system, hasten to the sea. It touches geological problems at every inch of its way, some of which will be referred to briefly when speaking of soil and climate and their relations to human health. Varieties of water. There's many different varieties of water: rainwater, spring and well water, mineral springs, river water, stagnant water, another classification of waters, quantity of water needed. We're going to read rainwater. In classifying waters, we have first to consider them in as regards their sources. Rainwater, as already mentioned, is sweet and soft, and when filtered is perfectly adapted to all the purposes of life. The one difficulty about its use being the impossibility of collecting it pure and preserving it without contamination for the long periods of time and in a large quantities, which would often be necessary. Spring and well water. Spring and well waters are most always more or less impregnated with the soluble ingredients of the earth and rocks through which they pass, and are therefore sometimes very unsuitable for the ordinary wants of life. As a general rule, they are colder than other waters. Although hot springs are found in various parts of the world, some with a temperature as high as the boiling point. And mineral springs, notwithstanding they are much used for drinking, are properly medicinal agents. They comprise of all those waters which contain sufficient quantities of dissolved matters, such for example as iron or sulfur, as to produce thereby a positive effect upon the systems of persons partaking of them. The mineral springs of this country are frequently valuable remedy against agents in some chronic diseases. River water. River water is, to a certain extent, similar to spring water, but is much more apt to be contaminated with sand and clay, organic material from decomposing vegetables or animal remains. The refuse of manufactories, and especially with the sewage of cities and towns, to which it is probable immense amounts of sickness and death are annually due in all civilized countries. Unfortunately, river water is that which is chiefly supplied to towns and cities, and therefore finds its way into the system of vast numbers of our fellow beings. Terrible how river water is used in such a manner. Stagnant water. Stagnant water is from the large quantity of organic matter in a decomposing state which it holds in suspension or solution, exceedingly unfitted for drinking and culinary purposes, no matter how transparent it may appear, and it should, in consequence, be carefully avoided whenever running water can possibly be procured. Pond water, canal water, ditch water, or marsh water all come under this category and should be scrupulously shunned under penalty of suffering from fever and ague, dysentery, typhoid fever, and many other dangerous maladies. Not good to be drinking stagnant water. And there's another classification of waters. Some authors upon hygiene further arrange the different kinds of water into three groups, according to the various uses to which they are applied. The first of these comprises the drinking waters, including the mineral waters, which through medical are chiefly so by being taken into the stomach. The second, the washing waters, and third, the bathing waters, under which head the waters of the ocean are entitled. From a sanitary point of view, to a prominent place, a very important consideration in regard to water supply, whether it be for a single family or for a large community. It is next after its purity, its abundance. Many instances are on record where, after comparatively expensive water works had been constructed, it was found that the amount of water obtained was insufficient and new arrangements must be made. The quantity of water needed by man and animals must therefore be very carefully calculated. Repeated experiments upon a very extended scale in England have shown that a healthy man requires daily as drink from 2 to 4 pints of water, this amount being in addition to that which is swallowed as moisture in food. The amount required for cooking is estimated at from half a gallon to a gallon or more. To this quantity, Dr. Parks considers should be added for daily ablution, including a sponge bath, 5 gallons, daily share of kitchen and other utensils and house washing, 3 gallons, and share of clothes washing, another 3 gallons, making up a total of a little over 12 gallons for each individual daily. You only can use 12 gallons of water a day. If you go beyond that, according to the writings here, is you're using excessively and you should be charged more than what other people use in 12 gallons. In the poorer districts of the city of London, the amount used is stated to be only about 5 gallons. You see, poverty-stricken people don't get to use as much as the wealthy people. A shower bathe will require about 4 gallons extra, and a plunge bath from 40 to 60 gallons. That sounds like a wealthy person. 40, 60 gallons of water. Oh my goodness. Where water closets are used as additional quantity from 4 to 6 gallons daily for each person must be provided. Wow. Water supply for cities. Professor Rankine estimates that the average daily allowance for each individual in large towns should be 10 gallons. For domestic purposes, such as those already enumerated, 10 gallons for municipal purposes, such as washing streets, extinguishing fires, and so forth, and 10 gallons more for trade purposes, at least in manufacturing communities. This total of 30 gallons per head, large as it may seem at first sight, is actually furnished to many towns at the present time. Thus, for example, the amount furnished daily to each individual in parish is 31 gallons, and the different London water companies supply from 21 to 34 gallons daily per head to the entire population. Now, the supply in American cities. In American cities, the item of waste enters largely into the account, so that much greater quantities are theoretically furnished. For instance, in Washington, 138 gallons, and in New York, about 100 gallons are supplied daily for each inhabitant. In large towns and cities, especially with the combustible buildings so common in the United States, the source of supply must be capable of furnishing a quantity in case of extensive fires, vastly in excess of the average consumption. In the Great Fire of Boston in 1872, when about 60 acres in the business portion of the city was involved in the burn district, whilst the daily consumption of water was a little over 12 million of gallons, nearly 17 million of gallons are thought to have been used. Waste of water. The amount of waste is so great that, according to the report in Chicago Public Works, 1/2 of the water pumped is wasted, and the cost to the city of wasted water in St. Louis was estimated at $4 million in 10 years. In some cases, an attempt has been made to diminish the necessity of a very large amount of pure water by having two sets of pipes and introducing two kinds of water, one pure enough for drinking and culinary purposes, and the other suited to the less delicate uses such as most of the municipal and trade purposes. But in addition to the seriously increased expense of such a double system, it is found that in practice that the pure water is generally employed for nearly all purposes and little saving is therefore accomplished. Bang. And until the next time. Water in the channel.